You may be seated. We are here today to mourn the loss of, remember the life of, Jeff Kahn. To everything there is a season, a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace.
From Psalm 16. Shviti Adonai Lenegdi Tomid Ki mimini ba emot Lachen samach libi Biagel kivoti of Besari, Ishkon Lavetach. Amen. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult, and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift.
When I was looking for readings, I thought that this psalm was particularly appropriate for Jeff. Merciful one, who may dwell in your tent, who may reside on your holy mountain, one who lives without blame, who does what is right, in whose heart truth is acknowledged, whose speech promotes no evil, and who sought to do no harm to others, nor act hurtfully towards neighbors, who abhors contemptible behavior, but honors those who revere God, who does not waver even at great personal risk from keeping a promise, who seeks no reward for a generous action and takes no bribe to distort judgment against the innocent. One who does so shall never be shaken.
Psalm 121. Esaenai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri, 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 me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz al yitin lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha Shomer Yisrael. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where is the source of my help? My help comes from God, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm, and God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever.
Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Ro'i Lo Eksar. Binyo Dashim Yarbaseni. Ame Menuchot Yanachaleni. Nafshi Yoshev Yancheni B'madle Sedek Lama Anshago. Gam. Ki Elech Bages Samavet Lo Irara. Ki Ata Imadi Shiftaka Umishantaka Hema Yanachamoni. Ta'arok Lefanai Shulchet Neget Sorarai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kos rivaya. Arto v'chesed yardafuni kol yemei chaya. V'shavti v'veit Adonai la'orech yamin. A song of David. Eternal One, you are my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will feel no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff, you comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup is overflowing. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in your house forever. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking ahead or backward, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. We'll now have some people that I'm inviting up to speak about Jeff. I'd like to invite Robert Bullock to come up first, please.
When I was 8 or 9 years old, I was at Floral Park Ave with my older sister, then in her early teens. In that park, there was a big racquetball wall made of brick, at least 2 feet thick. Pretty rare around here. As I stood there staring at that wall from the end of the court, I had a strange idea. I convinced myself that if I just believed enough, without a stitch of doubt that I could run at that wall and pass right through it like it wasn't even there. And so I tried. I took off full speed right at that wall with no fear I wouldn't easily make it through to the other side. I could see my sister off to the side waving no as she knew her little brother well. When I hit the wall, I hit it with a full body impact, went flying and landed on my back, barely conscious. My attempt was not even partially successful. I don't think I even made a millimeter through. My sister called over the lifeguards to administer first aid and nurse me back to full consciousness. Strange to begin my eulogy for Jeff with a story about myself. Well, here's the thing. Jeff was also convinced he could pass through walls in an act of sheer will or self-confidence. I would say this belief even defined his relationship with this world. Perhaps his approach would be more energetic than my own, to smash through, to knock that wall down altogether, or perhaps talking into stepping aside for its own safety. But have no doubt, Jeff lived to break through walls. The walls that confined him and the walls that confine us from one another. The walls that prevent further inquiry and discovery. The walls of mindlessness and apathy. The walls of social and personal injustice. Even the walls of naive optimism based on self-deception. He was really good at smashing those walls, especially for me. So with regards to walls, Jeff and I had the same goal, but different means. Whereas my approach to life is primarily one of the solitary yogi, Jeff's was primarily one of the philosopher king and intellectual warrior, and sometimes the physical warrior too. I mean, I think more than one of us witnessed him literally trying to break through a wall with his fist when some fool frustrated him to his wit's end at the cafe. He may have even penetrated the thick plaster in that ancient building on occasion. The dude was strong. So that much better he punched walled in the face of the perpetrator of some uncaring stupidity. But let's be clear, despite a sometimes nasty temper, Jeff abhorred violence. He valued intelligence above all. He had a passion for ideas and for thought unlike anyone else I've ever known. We could easily talk for 4, 5, 6 hours about life, about the mind, about meaning itself. Those who watched our friendship from the outside were no doubt disturbed on the frequent occasions when our talking would turn to debating and become, shall we say, vigorous. We could get loud, we could get frustrated, we could even deliver the occasional stringing blow that went over the line. But what we never do is hold a grudge, at least not for more than a few hours, maybe a day or two at most, but walk away, never. Because we knew. We knew that our relationship was way more important than being right, even though Jeff would constantly remind me he was right. We knew that we are of the same basic stuff, the same spiritual genotype. Strangely, I would not call our relationship loving particularly, at least not until recent years. I'm happy to say that we had grown tired of the debates, or perhaps transcended any need for them, as we had a more complete understanding of one another and our views. And mostly we just enjoyed in one another's company. Sure, we'd still butt heads over politics once in a while, but for the most part, we just talked about what cool things we were doing, how we were feeling, or just joked endlessly about some absurdity. So I need to say this clearly. Jeff was the funniest man I've ever met in my life, bar none. Nobody has brought me to tears of laughter more than Jeff did. And not just me, but usually Rebecca and my wife as well, sitting around a table on a cruise or in a restaurant or on their deck, just eating, drinking, smoking, and laughing and laughing and laughing. Jeff has smashed through the ultimate wall now. The wall of having a single form, the wall of having possessions, the wall of fear, the wall of hope, the wall of limitations of the heart, of the mind, completely limitless, unconfined, massive, brilliant, and often absurd, and inconceivable on every possible level. Unlimited bravery, unlimited joy, unlimited laughter, an unlimited note with the perfect tone over the perfect chord that resonates like thunder, that strikes like lightning, bursting open clouds of unknowing, pouring down on us all and filling us with oceans of meaning. He always did, and he always will. Our Jeff went supernova, and he would appreciate this. Thank you.
I would like to invite Ken Foster up to speak.
So some of you have probably read this, parts of this I put up on Jeff's tribute site, but oops, wrong page. So I read an article some 2 to 3 decades ago that suggested, contrary to popular default belief, we are not isolated bits of animated energy or life force or soul or whatever, trapped inside sealed up flesh and bone containers, occasionally bumping into each other and somehow communicating through the container in a variety of ways, including speaking, writing, singing, touching, rubbing containers together, and like recently, beating containers of Capitol Police with flagpoles. But rather, the life force, the spirit, animating energy, microcosmic engine stuff, whatever, et cetera, runs through us all, connecting us with each other and pretty much everything. So, in spite of the fact that I read that in somewhat of a new agey, self-helpy, woo-woo, mumbo-jumbo publication, the bit about the web of connection really took root for me. And I have envisioned us all as that, a web, all at the hub of a web of experience, love, and inner being that reaches out and connects with all we have ever known. When someone dies, the center does not hold, and the web draws in and collapses. And here we are. Jeff's web is vast. I don't think I've ever personally known anyone who has created such an expansive, powerful network of experience and life. Just if you think about it, this circuit of joy and music and festivity and wit and meaningful conversation and mirth and a sense of belonging and also a good dose of edgy sarcasm that Jeff created, that he poured all his heart and soul and intellect into, his life's work, music, the cyber, 22 awesome craft beers, all that. An extension of Jeff that connects all of us here and far beyond. And now our center has disappeared from this world of heartbeats and breath and all that we love and know in this world of the senses. And again, here we are, drawn into the empty place that was Jeff, collapsing in this tangled knot of love and loss and grief and gratitude, trying to fill the space and hold the center. And we do. We fill that space with all that we have been given from Jeff and all that we have given back. So maybe this is also true. All of us in this room, connection points in this web collapsed, each the center or the hub of our own net of inner being, together bring a near infinite web of experience, joy, grief, love. And Jeff is in it all. Our love is our grief, and it's all bittersweet. Just a couple of anecdotes. I was lucky enough to be neighbors for the last year and a half with Jeff and Rebecca in our little suburban Pleasant Valley Sunday neighborhood in Vestal, just 2 blocks down. And so I was, we got to hang out. I got to hang out with Jeff and Rebecca and once or twice Gabe in the backyard on the deck and let the dogs run around. It was, endless entertainment watching Pax and Gonzo frolic. And we talked, as Robert mentioned, about a lot of different things. When we weren't talking about the Grateful Dead or other inferior forms of music, or bashing the crap out of Trump and Republicans. Sorry. But if you've read any of his newsletters, that's no surprise, right? But occasionally we'd talk about life, the universe, and everything. And we never came up with 42, reference Douglas Adams, whatever. But we did kind of come to some nebulous conclusions. One was that there is this thing, some God thing. We have no idea what it is. We have no idea what it means, but that's good. That's a mystery and it's okay. And 2, that it is a mystery and that's good. We like it that way. And 3, something goes on. Something continues after we leave. And I hope, I kind of know Jeff took that with him. We also kind of talked about and sort of agreed on the idea that everything, the very quantum foundation of reality is bittersweetness. So, and the other thing, I also had the privilege of living above the Cyber Cafe for the last couple of years of its existence. So that was also kind of like being in Jeff's neighborhood. I suppose if the Cyber Cafe was an extension of Jeff, which I was living inside Jeff. I'm sorry, that's weird. That's too weird. But we had a lot of great conversations on the back porch. And he would smoke a stogie, and I'd bring a couple of beers out. And there was one point where I was really troubled about something, and I'm not going to say what it is. I can't even remember the details because I'm getting old and my memory's getting spongy. But I was really troubled, and Jeff picked up on it. And he said something to the effect of, "What's going on, Ken?" And I told him, just a little bit. And Jeff, like laser beamed right to the heart of it and said, "This is what's going on. This is where it started. This is how it manifests in your life. This is the tangled knot it's created." And then he untied the tangle and tied it back together in a knot that works for me. Like that, like less than 15 minutes. And I was just like, jaw drop. What the? Jeff, you know me better than I do. How did you do that, right? I mean, I had a therapist for 6 years that never came up with this stuff. And she's a really good therapist, I was like, my God. So about 3 days later, I think we're maybe on the back porch. It was probably a Thursday night after a gig where the nobody that was there left. Or maybe the one person that was listening to us, an ugly dolphin. So we were drinking a beer and I said, "Jeff, you remember what you said to me like last week?" And he's like, "Yeah." Or more like, "Yes," like Jeff would do. And I said, "Jeff, you're like the most empathetic person I've ever known." And he visibly bristled, like looked at me like I'm some kind of simp, right? And I'm like, and of course, next to Jeff, I am a simp, but I could tell it was like, yeah, he was probably thinking of over emotive Carl Rogers, person-centered therapy, mumbo jumbo stuff. And I said, "Wait a minute, Jeff, it's not like it's atypical. It's a different kind of empathy. With your intellect, you understand systems, economic systems, political systems, whatever kind of systems are involved. You use that same ability for insight on emotional, experiential systems of other people. You know, like you drilled right in, you untied that knot and figured it out. Like, that's unbelievable. I would guess that there's quite a few people in this room that have experienced the same thing. Pretty incredible. Part of the enigma and the magnetism and the charisma that was Jeff. Like, he was a great man. I know that, you know, at a lot of funerals, people practically deify people, even if they're not. But Jeff truly was one of a kind. We're all unique, but Jeff was in his own unique, awesome orbit. Yeah, and I'm sure we're all going to miss him dearly. Hard to find, you know, it's all bittersweet. I sort of got that from a dear friend of mine who turned me on to Gibran, on Joy and Sorrow, your love is your joy, or your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And from that, I kind of have this mantra that everything is bittersweet. And it's been hard to find the sweetness in this. It's pretty damn bitter. But I really believe that the sweetness follows. And I really believe that it already has for Jeff. So I wish you all peace, love, and courage.
I'd like to invite Rebecca's parents, Howard and Barbara Goldstein, to come up.
The reason for my wearing this Cyber Cafe sweatshirt is because my comments today center around this item. Jeff and Rebecca's marriage was made in heaven, but it took a detour through the Cyber Cafe. Shortly after Rebecca graduated from Binghamton University, she obtained a position with the local Fox television station. One of her first assignments was to interview Jeff. The interview lasted hours, and so the romance began. After Jeff gave me this sweatshirt, I noticed that many times when I wore it around my neighborhood, that people stopped me to talk about the cafe and Jeff and their son, daughter, etc., who I'll just refer to as a student hereafter, was a student at Binghamton University. They especially mentioned how friendly and welcoming Jeff was. Sometimes Rebecca was there and they commented on how lovely she was and how she greeted them with warmth and a smile. Many years ago, Barbara and I went to Israel, where we have many friends and she has many relatives. On one occasion, we had just finished a tour of Jaffa and were heading to our cars when three women passed us. One of the women turned and, looking at the sweatshirt, said, "Where did you get that sweatshirt from?" "My student goes to Binghamton University. We know all about the cafe." So we mentioned their relationship we had with Jeff and Rebecca, and we talked for some time before we immediately went our way. but they mentioned what a nice man he was and how every time she visited her student, they always went to the cafe at least once. The conversation lasted about 10 minutes, and then we went our separate ways. That evening, that very evening, we had dinner in Renana, where we were staying for a few days whilst I was still wearing the sweatshirt. Within minutes of being seated, unbelievable, the owner came over and started a conversation about the cyber cafe and Jeff, and how his student loved going there, especially for the music and to meet new friends. Sometime after we came home, we saw Rebecca and Jeff at the cafe. Knowing how quick Jeff could be on the uptake, I mentioned kiddingly that I was entitled to some compensation for all of the advertising I was doing as a walking and talking billboard. As I knew would happen, Jeff looked at me with a grin on his face and a twinkle in his eye and asked how I figured I was entitled to compensation when all I had done was meet people who were already his customers. And he said, when and if you start bringing me customers, let's have another conversation. So we hugged and laughed. Now, in the few minutes before I sit down, I must say something on behalf of Jeff, Rebecca, my wife Barbara, and myself. We were so very thankful for all of the best wishes, hopes, time, everything our friends, relatives, and sometimes complete strangers gave Jeff and Rebecca. I must specifically refer to this community. We have never seen such an outpouring of love and compassion and help 24/7 at all times, which was such a great help to Rebecca and to Jeff. In fact, one of the last times I saw Jeff when he was still barely able to talk, he mentioned what a comfort it was to him to know that Rebecca, his treasure, his beloved wife, would not have to face the future alone, but that she had such support and help from all sources. All we can say is thank you, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We love you all.
Rebecca and I discussed what to call the next group of people who are coming up. And she decided that this was the one and only appropriate way to do it. So I would like to call up the Cyber Cafe West family.
Hi, everybody. My name's Donna, and these are some of my best friends on the entire planet. There's a few more of them scattered here as well. This is Lauren, Mary, Sandra, Jackie, and Jen, and I'm sure some of them are familiar to a lot of you. I am honored to be the one who gets to read this to you, but we wrote this speech together over many hours over the last few days at Lauren's house, no, it's Lauren's house. I was going to say Ed's house, but it's not. It's Lauren's. In some ways, though, this speech and these reflections in it were not born just of those few hours, but really of the last 20 or so years that we have been lucky enough to share with each other and with Jeff and with Rebecca. Rebecca and Gabe gave us this opportunity to talk a little bit about what Jeff has meant to us. We're speaking as representatives of the Cyber Cafe West, which existed both before and after some of us. And we want to share some of what Jeff taught us through the ways he lived his life and ran his business, unapologetically and with his only bottom line being happiness, not profit. Rebecca may have been frustrated with that at times, probably when the mortgage was due. But for her and for many of us, Jeff's unending Peter Pan-like dedication to joy was an inspiration that we have carried with us into our own latent adulthoods. So many partners would have made Jeff shutter the doors the first time the liquor authority sent a bill twice the size of the cafe's yearly profit. But Rebecca loved Jeff the way he deserved to be loved and has always been his biggest supporter. We love you, Rebecca, and we are so lucky for the love that we get to share with both of you. When many of us started working at or coming around the cafe, we were barely old enough to drink, let alone vote. Gabe was still a child, and we have had the honor of watching him grow and become one of our peers and one of our friends. Despite our young ages, Jeff saw us as human beings at a time in our lives when not everybody did. Looking back, Rebecca's love for him illustrated it perfectly. When Rebecca first started showing up at the cafe, and I remember this clearly, like, who is she? She's here for him? Forgive us, Jeff, for our incredulity at first. I mean, come on. But of course, it makes sense. Jeff's wonder and respect for life were so beautiful, and it was evident in the way that he treated all of us and the way he lived his life and in the community he created. It's no wonder then that he was able to grab the attention of a woman like Rebecca, who impressed us not only with her physical beauty, but with her charm, her kind heart, her sardonic humor. A phrase, by the way, Rebecca, we wrote before you did, and I was like, well, this is perfect. Let's use the same one. I was going to change it, and I was like, no. And of course, her outsized intelligence. Rebecca, you have always been perfect for him. And Jeff has always been perfect for us and for the cafe. Our relationships with him were one-to-one. Sometimes he protected us, like when a customer got a little too belligerent, where we needed guidance in our personal lives. And sometimes protected him, like when he thought that lettuce was somehow free, or when the world, true story, or when the world demanded a level of responsibility that he didn't want to acknowledge. It's not like he needed a reality check, but we gave it to him anyway. It's actually, where is she? Mostly Sandra who did that. When we were threatened, he consciously slipped into the role of protector. When the bills were due, we helped him balance the books. Also mostly Sandra. Humans serving humans. Jeff meant that, and he lived it. Because so many of us were in our formative years when our lives intersected the most with Jeff, we did often need advice, even if we didn't know we needed it. Whether we liked it or not, Jeff would deliver hard truths in his way with a joke, a metaphor, maybe one of these, shoulder shrug. Years later, we would reflect and realize how lucky we were to have someone withhold sympathy and instead deliver a loving dose of reality. When Jen lost one of her best friends when she was 21, she struggled hard for weeks. Lots of laying in bed and crying, probably missing work. But Jeff didn't care much about that part. He was a friend first. He went to her house and gave her a talk about how her grief was valid, but he also gently reminded her that she was still alive and that she should live as such. This lesson braced her for other losses. It taught her to live in a way that honors the great ones we lose and gave her the ability to survive almost anything that life could throw at her. He had that side of him, of being blunt and to the point, of being incisive and philosophical, but he was also connected to our day-to-day experiences. He always hung out with us. He liked to be in the know, and he knew the ins and outs of all of our personal lives, and he cared. He loved being a part of the cafe, not just its owner. So what does it mean to be part of the cafe? For us, it means everything. Being part of a family, being part of a tribe, and learning about being yourself. For each of us who all worked and played there at different times in our lives, and for all of you, the cafe was a wellspring of confidence. Confidence to find love that we deserved. Confidence to let go of the love that didn't work. Confidence to find our passions, and confidence to chase our dreams. In short, the cafe was home. Jeff built us an oasis, something magical when everything else and everywhere else felt like a desert. It was always a safe place to go. It was a place to grow, to be nourished by hopes and dreams and inspiration, a soft place to escape or to rest or to fall, a place to be yourself, to be surrounded by others like you, something comfortable and familiar, a place where you know which stair creaks, and there were a lot of creaky stairs, a place to grow as a person, intellectually, creatively, emotionally, and confidently. When you became part of the cyber, you became part of the family. For many of us, it was the first time we realized you could have a family that you weren't born into, a family that sometimes means more. He created a space where no one had to feel alone unless they wanted to. We will always have a home because thanks to Jeff, we know what home feels like. Jeff's ability to create a home was the same energy he brought to everything. He was both the center of and the catalyst of so many beautiful experiences. He curated love and art and music, and he sparked the rest of us to create too. He was at the center of a lot of the music that happened, sure, but he was the spark of so much, much more. Bands formed and changed and grew on that stage, and the relationships behind the music morphed in the same ways. And it wasn't just music. Jeff's ability to spark love and joy is the reason that we are all standing here in front of you today. Jeff helped us find ourselves. He was a philosopher who helped us think and grow into the people we are very proud to be. A catalyst. He changed us by just being himself. He told Lauren once that she was smart in a way that people didn't understand. If you don't know Lauren, she flits around like a happy little butterfly, landing here and there and smiling briefly on everything she meets. It's easy to misunderstand her, but not for Jeff. He always knew who she was, and he made sure that she did too. Sandra didn't always need Jeff's advice as often as some of us did. She's the responsible one. She came into the cafe and saw how she could help. She made us the most beautiful to-do lists that you have ever seen, color-coded and happy handwriting. And Jeff would walk in, see them behind the counter, nod in approval. Yes, that is a good idea. You should do that. And he would feel content that the right people were taking care of things. So even in this way, Jeff was a catalyst. His friendship and trust allowed Sandra to be part of creating the home that we all loved so much. He's the reason that Jackie ever got on stage and sang into a microphone. I was there. It was a quiet Thursday night. We did have those once upon a time. And finally, she decided to bite the bullet and step on the stage with monkeys typing. And look at the love and the music and the light that came from that. Of course, Jackie's friendship with Jeff was more than just the stage. It was late nights talking about anything and everything, trips to the Cisco food shows, and days spent trying to run a cafe. They spent a lot of time together and helped each other through a lot. And actually, Jackie is even still on Jeff's cell phone plan. So, okay. I'm on Rebecca's cell phone plan. Thank you, Rebecca. Mary also played on Thursday nights with Jeff for half a dozen years. She'd occasionally vent about the job that she had at the time, and Jeff would partially joke, "Hey, you want a job here?" And she would laugh it off. until eventually the tables turned and she walked in and said, "So Jeff, is that job still available?" Jeff welcomed her with open arms, not too open because he was not much of a hugger. If it weren't for that opportunity, Mary would not be the person that she is today, professionally, musically, or really in any way at all. And then there was a time that a customer came in looking for a perfume, but we no longer had the gift shop. That was a rough transition for this community. Jeff was sitting on a chair across from the bar and heard the exchange that I had with the customer, which I guess was a little snarky. Either way, she left empty-handed, but not too disappointed. And Jeff told me that I'm the only person he knows who can insult someone and leaving them feeling like I gave them a compliment. I was like, I can? It never occurred to me before that my sarcasm could be a superpower. I realize now it's because Jeff had pretty much the same skill. That knowledge has fueled pretty much every major interaction that I've had since then. Jeff showed all of us what it meant to embrace who we were, who we really were, not who we felt we had to be. We didn't have to smile at customers. I mean, we did, but we didn't have to. We didn't have to greet them in any specific way. We just had to be real people serving real food. And Jeff's own dedication to being his authentic self kept us all honest about ourselves too. Like many people who worked at the cafe, my life changed gears, and at some point, it had been a long time since I had been there. But every time I walked into a room full of friends. I know the same is true for many, many others. Because of Jeff, we will never be without a friend. Because of Jeff, we know what friendship is. You know, Rebecca gave us a 10-minute suggestion for this speech. And initially we thought that was laughable. How could we ever talk for 10 minutes? But when we got together at Lauren's house to write this and we started thinking about all of the people that were involved in the cafe and all of the people whose lives are therefore forever intertwined with ours in that web, we realized it would take at least 2 hours if we tried to list everyone, and we'd forget someone and we would feel bad. Please know that we thought of you and we love you and we wish that you could all be up here too. Of course, some of those friendships, as we know, did turn into a little bit more. We saw so many relationships start and we saw a few find their natural end. We've been to each other's weddings and we've hugged each other through breakups. We are standing here in front of you as friends that only exist because of Jeff Kahn. Even after you stopped working at the cafe, Jeff kept in touch. He would give you a call just to chat and check in. He wanted to make you laugh and he wanted you to know that he cared. Even during his last days, he wanted to see us all, forcing himself to have visitors probably long after it was comfortable for him. I was lucky enough to see him fewer than 2 weeks ago, and he was still cracking jokes at the doctor's expense and at his own. Without Jeff, none of us have each other. We may have known each other before we knew the cafe, but the friendships and bonds that have survived and grown in the last 2 or more decades do not exist without Jeff Kahn. Jeff once said, "Life is hard, life is short, life is fun, life is people." Whether you sold computer parts with him, served beer behind his bar, played music with him on a stage, lost to him in chess, racquetball, or a race around the building, beat him in Binghamton's Biggest Loser, tried to answer one of his complicated trivia questions, smoked a cigar with him on the deck, debated about the afterlife or the now life, or really any debate at all, had a shot of Crown or enjoyed a quality beer with him, we know that your life was better for it. Jeff also said, "I don't know what life is. Neither do we, Jeff. But we know how lucky we are for having lived even part of ours with you in it. Fare you well. Fare you well. We love you more than words can tell. Listen to the rivers sing sweet songs to rock our soul." Thanks. Thank you.
I just want to conclude the speeches with a few personal words about my friend Jeff. Many people have a dream, but most are afraid to leave the security of their daily life and follow them. Jeff did. In my mind, that makes his life a huge success because success is measured not so much by the financial success of that dream, although the fact that the cafe lasted as long as it did is impressive, considering how quickly many restaurants and music venues close, but by the simple fact of following that dream. The Jeff Kahn tribute page on Facebook showed how many lives he touched. What came to mind was a variation on a wonderful saying from The Wizard of Oz, with the word life replacing heart. The true measure of a life is not how much you love, but how much you are loved by others. If you would like to honor Jeff's memory, Rebecca and I came up with a few ideas. First, if you have a dream, follow it. Don't worry about success or failure, because what matters is the effort. You always know that you tried. Second, it's probably an understatement to say that Jeff was passionate about politics. Those who read his weekly newsletter knew that he didn't mince words about how he felt. Help keep that passion alive. Truth will always matter, so carry his lantern of truth with you, whether you do it in a blog, in letters to the editor, and rallies, or however you choose. Third, Jeff's dream was to fill the Triple Cities with music. His stage gave local musicians an incredible opportunity. So please support local music whenever and wherever you can. Jeff was a powerful force, and his passing leaves a huge gap in the lives of many. May his memory be for a blessing. Like a waves arriving from the ocean's dance, so do we arise from the dance of God. Like a wave returning from the rocky shore, its form given to chaos, but restored in the ocean's unity, so do we return from life's end, recycled into the holiness, to dance once more. Awesome and wondrous is the dance of God. May all who mourn find comfort. May all who fall beneath sorrow's burdens find the strength to rise and walk on. Let us grant each other peace and give each other courage. Let us spread out a blanket of peace so we may aid in each other's healing. I ask those of you who are able to rise as we say the traditional prayer, asking that the soul of the departed will rest with God. Amalei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meramim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Takat Kanfei HaShekinah, B'Malot Kodoshim U'Toharim, Kozahar Haraki Amazirin, Et Nishma Yosef Ben Simon David, Shahalach Olam, Anava Harachamim, Hasjerehu Beseder Kanafechel Olamim, Utzros Bizros Hachayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Nachalato, V'Anuach B'Shalom HaMeshkavo, V'Nomar Amen. God filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens' heights, bring proper rest beneath your wings, amid the ranks of the holy and the pure, illuminating like the brilliance of the sky, the soul of Jeff Kahn, who has gone to the eternal place of rest. May you, who are the source of mercy, shelter him beneath your wings eternally, and bind his soul among the living, that he may rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. Jeff's family will be sitting Shiva for 7 days. There, for those of you who have picked up the form because it's a little complicated, Shiva services will be on Zoom Wednesday and Saturday nights at 7 p.m. and 2 p.m. on Sunday. The family will be shitting Shiva in person from noon to 4 p.m. on Thursday and Sunday through Tuesday, 2 to 3 p.m. on Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. on Thursday and Sunday and Tuesday. And there will be 7:30 Shiva Minyan services on Thursday, Monday, and Tuesday. I'd like to take a moment on behalf of the family to thank all of you who wrote notes on Caring Bridge, who posted on the Jeff Kahn Facebook page, who called, texted, brought food, visited. The list of things that people have done for the family is really too much to list. The love and kindness you all showed has been much appreciated during this incredibly difficult time. I'm now going to ask the pallbearers to come up to the coffin, and I ask that you remain seated while we take the coffin out and the family follows. Thank you.
The burial will be at West Lawn Cemetery for those who would like to join the family for that following the service.